One, welcome everybody to the July 18th Financial and Administrative Services Committee. Our usual chair is Councillor Blackmore, who is online, but since she's not in the room today, she's asked me to chair. Councillor Palat, who will be joining us momentarily, and Mayor Clayton are also voting members on this committee. First up, we've got our acting chief service area update.
Thank you, Chair Bressie. So starting with our service area update, our tax and assessment department felt that tax time went really smoothly this year. Collection rate was up over last year, and extending operational hours for the last 3 days of June appears to have helped those who can't make it to City Hall during regular business hours. They're also now following up with any customers who had any sort of payment issues. For finance and accounting and budget, so they're working on the June month-end close, which coincides with Q2. So reporting has started for the Q2 report that Council will see after the break. Budget is continuing with our regular budgeting process, as well as working on variance reporting with departments this week. In procurement, they're continuing to work with departments to complete competitive bid requests and capital projects for 2023. And in our GIS and ITS, enterprise licensing audits are being conducted throughout the organization, just to make sure that we right-size operational requirements for user access. So making sure that appropriate staff have the right licenses, just to be fiscally prudent with those. The Coordinated Care Campus Network for city staff is also active, and grant management solution kickoff meetings with stakeholders has begun, so corporate application can be completed in Q3. That's all I have for an update today, so I'll take any questions if there are any.
Thank you. I'm looking around and I'm not seeing any questions, so I'll hand it over to you, Ms. Nespo, for our next report.
Okay. Oops. Okay, thank you, Chair Bressie. The next item is 3.2, which is the Swan City Hockey Association loan. So I'm just going to do a few brief highlights about this. So for most people, the Swan City Hockey Association is more commonly known as the Grande Prairie Storm. So on June 20th, members from the Swan City Hockey Association attended the GP Invest Committee as a delegation. A portion of their request was for forgiveness of the outstanding loan. At the June 26th council meeting, administration was directed to bring back a report regarding forgiveness or amendment options for the GP Storm loan. The background section of the report includes some specific history on the loan, such as original terms, payments made to date, deferral periods, current repayment terms, and by principal and interest. So that's there for committee review. I would like to note that the loan was advanced in March of 2019, and then the deferral periods that are noted in the report span the time period when organizations were most significantly impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. As indicated during their delegation presentation last month, the association is working through a multi-step plan that they believe will bring them greater financial stability. However, they have indicated that immediate cash demands are too significant for the association to manage. In early July, our CFO, Ms. Whiteway, and myself met with representatives from the association to discuss options that may be considered and the impacts to both organizations. Administration's recommendation is to provide the association an interest-free payment deferral period for up to 3 years in relation to their outstanding loan. In addition to this recommendation, we've provided some alternatives in the report should those meet committee's intentions better. Our local economy has improved from the pandemic state, and administration believes that a 3-year deferral period would allow the association enough time to implement some of the steps in their financial plan and to hopefully be in a better position at the end of the deferral period. And then at that point, council could certainly be able to revisit the topic at that time after considering the financial health of the association then.
Great. Thank you for the report. Councillor Bosch.
Thank you for the report. I just have a question. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think when this came the last time, we also had discussed waiving what they owed for us and what that would look like and where that fund would come from. That was the request of them, and so we did discuss it briefly, but I don't see any of that here. Right, but coming out of where? Did I miss that?
Here, I'll hand over to Ms. Nesbo.
Thank you, through the chair. So if the alternative is forgiveness or interest deferral or interest forgiveness, we could look at various funding strategies. So we could fund it from the Future Expenditures Reserve or CSI within FER, or we could also look at the Financial Stabilization Reserve if that's the wish of the committee.
Okay, thank you. I don't see it here, but I'll look.
Thank you. I'll recognize Councillor Plott.
Thanks, Chair Bressie. Happy with the recommendation in the report and would put a motion forward unless there's other business.
I think you could do business.
Okay. So I would just make a motion that committee recommend council provide the Swan City Hockey Association with an interest-free payment deferral period of up to 3 years on their outstanding loan from the city, with repayments beginning again in July 2026.
I will say for myself, definitely happy to support it today. It's one of those things that I think should go to council for debate. I don't know if I'm comfortable with the 3-year length of this, so I don't know where I'll go when it comes to council, but happy to support this today. I'll also recognize Councillor Blackmore.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Bressie, for chairing the meeting and for giving me an opportunity to support this motion. I'm not comfortable with waiving the loan entirely at this point in time, and so I think that this is a good option to get the storm back on solid footing and give them an opportunity to prove that they are still an effective and very important asset in our community. So I will support the motion, and I look forward to it going to council.
Thank you. And I'm not seeing any other hands up, so I will call this to question.
Councillor Blackmore in favour.
And that motion carries, so I think that wraps up this report. So I'll hand it back for our mid-year capital budget requests.
Thank you, Chair Bressie. So 3.3, the mid-year budget request. So each year, Council approves the subsequent year operating and capital plan as part of the annual budget deliberations in November. The mid-year request brings forward projects of urgent nature that have been identified as requiring immediate funding. The recommendation is that committee recommend council amend the 2023 operating and capital budgets as presented in the attached appendix, which is Appendix A. So a brief summary of what's included in the analysis. So there was 7 projects that were included in this request, and that's in addition to the request made at the Public and Protective Services Committee earlier this morning. So you will see the Coordinated Care Campus included in that Appendix A as well. So a quick summary is additional funds for the Brandt Skyloft project, $90,600, support for the 2024 National Aboriginal Hockey Championship of $25,000, 2025 Special Olympics Alberta Summer Games, $10,000, parking lot surfacing for the curling club, $115,000, Eastlink Centre Aquatics Scoreclock replacement, $250,000, transit shelters, $130,000, and solar project rescope from a previously approved design work center. There's no additional funds requested, but a significant scope change to the project, so requesting approval for this as well. Recommended funding sources are included in Appendix A as well. Administration has identified that funds can be unallocated from the leisure center demolition, a portion of funds can be unallocated from that project to be used to support these projects. This includes an amount from the 2019 to 2022 CSI that was previously committed to that project, which is $842,000. And as you can see, the recommendation is to then fund the majority of these projects from the FER and one project from the Facility Renewal Reserve for a total of $1,820,600. Sorry, got tongue-tied there. $1.8 million. Further detail of the projects have been included in the analysis section of the report. These projects have been brought forward due to time sensitivity and, if approved, required a designated funding source to support them.
Thank you for the report. I'm surprised to see no hands up. All right, I'll go to Mayor Clayton first.
I'm asking the chair how you'd like to go through these. They're each significant projects in nature and require various levels of conversation. So I'm curious, as the chair, how you would like to go forward with this.
Actually, yeah, that's actually a good, thanks. That's a good question. Maybe what I'll do is I'll just go through them in the order of the report, and I'll name a project if somebody's got a question. Great. If not, I'll move on. So let's start with the Brandt Skyloft. Does anybody have any questions about the Brandt Skyloft? Okay.
I do, Councillor Bressie.
My apologies, Councillor Blackmore. Thanks for jumping in.
I'm going to remove you as chair if that keeps up. I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm assuming that Brandt Tractor will be matching the $90,000 with another $90,000 for a total of $180,000 increase. Is that correct?
Ms. Nestivo?
Thank you. Through the chair, my understanding is no, there would not be a matching aspect, but I may defer this to Ms. Beaupre if she.
Isn't Catherine here to speak on this?
Oh, sorry, I didn't see her.
Miss Ridgway is in the room and might have some more information for us.
The chair? Okay. No, there would be. Brandt Tractor has not gotten the approval to match at this time. If council so chooses to request a matching amount, they could put that through to their head office.
Is that sufficient information for you, Councillor Blackmore?
Yeah, I would certainly be happier if the answer was yes, they're matching. But it gives me sufficient at this time, yes.
Excellent, thank you. And as we move down the list, maybe what we'll do is we'll just ask questions this first time through, and then I'll get somebody to move the list, and we can debate amendments to the list then, but we'll go through the whole list asking questions before we start talking about do we want something in or out. Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you very much, Chair Bressie. Just in regards to Brandt, of their $37,500 contribution to this room, how much of that have we spent of the $17,500 already gone into drawings and stuff?
Yeah, Ms. Ridgway, if you think you're the one that's got that answer.
Sorry, could you repeat?
Yeah, I just want to know if we've spent any of Brandt's sponsorship money.
Through the chair, yes, there's a lump sum that has Brandt's contribution, the city's contribution, and there have been the design fees that have come out of that. It's minimal.
Okay,
yeah.
Thank you.
Any other question? Oh, Mayor Clayton.
Just to clarify some of this on the Brandt Skyloft. So there's an additional $90,000 required to renovate the suite so that it's of the expectation of the sponsor, correct?
That's correct.
And so to date, between council and the prospective sponsor, they have collectively funded $87,500. We need another $90,000. The sponsorship amount, though, is still in perpetuity. It's not the $37,500. That was the capital amount. So there's an ongoing sponsorship that will be as a result of this capital dollar spent, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
And if the project doesn't move forward, we may need renegotiate that sponsorship.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I think we're good to move on to Aboriginal Hockey Championship grant funding. Any questions on that? Mayor Clayton.
Thanks, Chair Bressie. I thought we already put some money to this in another funding stream. Am I imagining that? Can maybe, if it's not, there we go. Thank you. Ms. Cajolet can answer.
Ms. Cajolet's coming up there for this
Perfect.
one.
Thank you. And maybe for the next one, too.
Thank you. Through the chair, no funding has been provided for this event to date.
So remind me on the games that we've, to date, that we have been awarded. How much is counts? I think it's $400,000 we've allocated for the Alberta Winter Games.
Through the chair, that is correct.
Okay, and nothing to date on the National Aboriginal?
Correct.
And nothing to date on Special Olympics?
That is also correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on this amount? Councillor Thiessen.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair Bressie. Ms. Cajolet, it states in here that there's a remaining request planned for the 2024 budget. Are we aware how much that request might be that we'd have to budget for?
Through the chair, I don't have the precise amount, but it has been included as part of a capital budget request that will come forward to council for fall to budget deliberations. I can certainly provide that information to council, though.
Well, that would be awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Not seeing other hands for this one, so I'll move on to Special Olympics. All right, I will move on then to the Curling Club grant for parking lot surfacing. Mayor Clayton.
Ajale or Chief Lemieux can update committee. I'm drawing a blank, but where are we at with the engineering project that went to find other uses for the curling club?
Thank you. Thank you, through the chair. So the consultant's report has been received. Administration actually has a meeting later this afternoon. So just kind of pending their final review of that, it is anticipated that a report will be brought back to the appropriate standing committee before the end of the summer.
And are we anticipating that there will be a capital request on that? So in order to reconfigure or facilitate the enhancement of the facility will require additional capital dollars on top of this parking lot request?
Through the chair, yes, it is anticipated that there will be a capital request associated with that report.
Maybe a question for the interim CFO, if I may. When would that, are you expecting to do another capital ask or something like that would wait till the fall budget deliberation?
Sorry, through the chair, normally that would wait until the fall budget deliberation.
Okay, thanks.
Councillor Blackmore, then Councillor Bosch.
My question is, I do believe that the curling club is city-owned and sits on city land. Is that correct?
Ms. Casually?
Through the chair, yes, that is correct.
So the city does have a policy that requires that paving, the parking lots are paved. And so the fact that we haven't paved this particular parking lot really makes it an outstanding item that should have been looked after several years ago, given our current policy for paved parking lots. So I don't have any questions about that. It's just a comment moving forward.
Question, but then I have another question on curling club.
Okay, I'll go Councillor Bosch, then Councillor Palat.
Thank you for that. I guess for me, I would like to see both the potential asks for what the changes might be for the curling club or the ask. Along with this feels like bits and pieces and gets lost. So is there a way that we could put both of these together and look at what we're looking at as a total cost?
I'll take that one. I think that if committee decides to defer this, that definitely would be in committee's purview to do. So definitely happy to have that debate if a member of committee wants to have that debate when we get to business. Councillor Palat.
Thanks, Chair Bressy. Just on this one, I'm just a little bit confused. If just to kind of Councillor Blackmore's comments about, if it's part of our policy is. Wouldn't this have been I guess I'm a little surprised it's coming to us now and this wasn't identified in a previous capital ask if this was something that should have been done. It just seems weird to me that it's kind of coming now to get done in the next couple months before the snow flies. So my preference would be to wait to see on this one until we actually see what's going on with the curling club. I guess my question for administration is if this didn't get paved in 2023 and it was put in the 24 capital plan, is that more realistic? We're getting into almost August to go to RFP on this now to pave it. So I'm just wondering what the likelihood of this actually getting done this summer still is.
Ms. Casually?
Thank you, through the chair. This project certainly wouldn't be one that is planned for implementation during the 2023 budget year. The purpose of bringing it forward to Council for consideration at this time is that the Curling Centre would apply for a CFEP, so Community Facility Enhancement Program grant through the small funding stream, and the deadline for that is September 15th of this year. Decision takes approximately 6 months. So funding, it is a matching grant though, so the matching amount would be required for them to be successful in applying for that grant fund, and then decision would be expected in probably February or so. So it is anticipated that if approved, this project would be done in the 2024 year, and in discussion with the engineering department, likely would be bundled with another capital project that would hopefully achieve some economies of scale savings for this work.
Okay, so if we wanted to wait for further reports, we might be too late for them to get the grant. Is that, if I'm understanding that correct?
Through the chair, for the grant, for the work to be done in the 2024 year, yes, that is correct.
Okay.
Mayor Clayton.
No, I'm good. That answer. I just wanted to clarify that. Grant funding, so I'm good. Thank you.
Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you very much, Chair Bressie. Ms. Cajolet, just sort of topping up on Councillor Platt's question. What if we find out in February that the Curling Club didn't get the grant, the CFEP grant? Would we continue with the project, or would we come back to council and say, hey, they didn't get the grant, we might need to add funding here?
Thank you, through the chair. Currently, there is no other mechanism for the funding if the matching grant is not received. So certainly could be an opportunity for the request to be brought back forward to administration, or for the project not to move forward at that time, and the this funding not allocated.
Okay, no, thank you for that. Just a question, knowing that the condition of that parking lot and alleyway, I'm just thinking in the worst case scenario, and then we decide not to go forward with it. What kind of time frame are we looking to remediate the parking lot area there at the Curling Club? We're talking about a year or two. Do we put substantial risk on the organization by not fixing it? Those are some of my questions.
Thank you, through the chair. Certainly, if the grant is received and the project moves forward, the intent would be to implement and pave that lot in the 2024 year. If that doesn't happen, administration would have to seek input from engineering to identify a timeline as to when that project would be completed otherwise.
Question I've got, and this, I don't know if you can answer this, Ms. Cajolet, or if this will be a Chief Glavin question, but we do have an annual program for city-owned parking lots. Why is this an exceptional project instead of contained in our usual funding for city-owned parking lots? I'll let whoever wants to take that.
Thanks, Chair Bressie. So that fund would be used to prioritize the rehabilitation of parking lots throughout the city. This one in particular would have been pre-requirement for a paved parking lot, so wouldn't have initially been identified, similar to all of the industrial you would see in Richmond. It's rare that you would see a paved parking lot in Richmond. If they were to do new development today, we require paved parking in those areas. So similar to that in this scenario, there's a lot of parking lots that need attention, and this just wasn't on our prioritized list.
Excellent. And so the existing budget we've got annually is for specifically rehabilitation, not upgrades of parking lots?
That's correct.
Excellent. Thank you. I'm not seeing anybody else on this topic, so I'll move down to Eastlink Center Aquatics Scoreclock replacement. Any questions? Mayor Clayton.
Thanks. Maybe Ms. Cajolet or Chief Lemieux can tell committee the work to date that's been done with the contractor. The Scoreclock currently is approximately 10 years old. I'm assuming there's no warranty left. I know that they've been out a couple times to try to amend the issues. So a complete replacement is unfortunate, and I just wondered if you could give us a bit more background on that.
Thank you, through the chair. So certainly some intermittent work has been done with our corporate facilities team in trying to mitigate any of the issues with the Scoreclock. The service provider, Swiss Timing, was on site in September of 2022, so they were able to replicate some of the issues that the Scoreclock was having at that time. They replaced some controllers, serviced some control jumpers, and replaced some switches that seemed to mitigate and alleviate the challenges at the time. In January of this year, there was a swim meet, and despite having all of that work done in September, some of the display lines did not work, and the clock continued to have some intermittent issues during the event. In February of this year, another service provider was on site. They replaced some bulbs, completed an overall servicing to the clock, and for subsequent meetings, the Scoreclock has functioned until this summer. The event recently held in July did experience some challenges. So it seems that a challenge appears, a solution is able to be achieved. The score clock is tested, seems to work, and then despite those efforts, sometimes during meets it does not happen. So for the July event, the vendor was able to push through an update to the software and equipment that the swim club was using for the event, and over time it was able to be resolved for that event.
So is it fair then to expect that in 10 years we're going to have to buy another score clock? Is that the life expectancy of swimming pool score clocks? How does this compare to other facilities, to your knowledge?
Thank you, through the chair. So according to the service provider, they typically they expected this score clock to be reliable for approximately another 7 years. However, despite all of the fail points that were addressed, some of the issues they have not been able to resolve. There are a number of displays that they're aware of from the mid-2000s that are still in operation and working fine. The service provider indicated that every pool environment is different, so it's really hard to determine a lifespan for that equipment.
I've got Councillor Blackmore, then Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you, Chair Bressie. I know that when we replaced the score clock in the Burnett Centre, we had some major supply issues in getting the clock here, and I'm wondering, do we have any kind of insurance that we would be able to actually replace the clock during the fall maintenance period? And then my second comment is, are there other companies that supply score clocks for swimming pools? I really have felt that over the years this clock has had many more issues than it should have, and I don't know why that is, but I'm wondering if we may be better off to go with a different supplier.
Ms. Casually?
Thank you. Through the chair, so certainly the intention would be to work with procurement and issue a competitive bid process for score clock. Based on the current timing, some vendors that we have spoken to, it is not outside of the realm of possibility that the new clock could be available for the aquatic shutdown. In the event that that doesn't happen, it is anticipated that the score clock could be replaced with a minor disruption to aquatic services. It won't require a shutdown of the entire pool.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor O'Connor.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair Bressie. I'm just curious, is moisture and humidity part of the issue? And my suggestion is, not that you can accept it, of course, but if they covered that with a glass panel so that it is sealed, would that possibly mitigate any of the future issues? Because any kind of electronics doesn't do well in a high humidity situation. So I just thought I'd throw that out there and just see if that could mitigate once you find another supplier. I'm just not sure if that's a factor or not. Thank you.
Okay, I don't know if you want to respond to that, Ms. Casually, or right. Mayor Clayton.
I just is there any opportunity for selling of any of the existing? It's unfortunate to hear that these clocks in other locations last up to 17 years, and ours is 10. I don't know why. It's really unfortunate. But is there any opportunity for recovering any of the expense of a new score clock?
Through the mayor, certainly the intent would be to work with our procurement department to, potentially recover some of the costs and sell the equipment either for parts or as a whole through our typical process.
I'm not seeing any other questions on this topic, so I will. Oh, I just pressed the wrong button. I believe the last one on the list was. Oh, sorry, 2 more. Transit-accessible shelters and stops.
Sure, this is sort of a more high-level conversation. I know that we currently have employed a grant writer, and I'm curious, transit is quite a opportunity in grants currently, and I'm wondering if there was any consideration for grants in all of these, and in particular in the transit bucket. I guess that's a question for the interim CFO.
Sorry, through the chair. Sorry, Mayor Clayton, could you please repeat the last part of your question?
So maybe it's for Chief McEachran. I think the grant writer falls in your purview. To your knowledge, has there been any grant applications or on any of these items? And in specifically transit, there seems to be consistently federal funding opportunities through transit, and I'm curious if we explored any of those.
Thank you, through the chair. I will need to get back to you on that. I don't have any details on the specifics on the grants.
If I can have another question for the interim CFO on this Brandt Skyloft, as well as there was one other. I'm curious about the funding choice. Under the Skyloft in particular, you mentioned the future expenditure reserve. Could it not fund under facility renewal?
Ms. Nestival?
Sorry, through the chair. Yes, that is an alternative source. I believe that they were kind of recommended as the majority of the projects were recommended to be funded through the FER once we could reallocate some funds from the Leisure Centre demolition project. So I think the idea was because we were making some funds available there that we would be able to cover this, but that is an alternative source as well. That's correct.
Okay, so I guess how do you suggest? I mean, I don't want to go through them one by one. You're the financial person. Those are your recommendations. I'm curious. You want to leave those for now, but then potentially you'll come back to council with another suggestion, or what are your thoughts there?
Sorry. So the Brandt Skyloft is recommended to come from the Facility Renewal Reserve, and
it says future expenditure reserve in the report. That's why I'm asking.
No, it says facility renewal.
Oh, but in the staff report, it says.
Oh.
Okay.
My apologies. I didn't realize that.
Thank you. All right. On that scale, I'm good.
So I'll also give, as we work through the list, at the end of the list, I'll do one last call to go back anywhere up on the list you want. So I think you're just sick on transit shelters right now. And I have Councillor Blackmore for transit shelters.
I noticed when we built the transit shelter at the Eastlink Centre, it took months and months and months for that build to be completed, and I think that was partly due to difficulty in accessing parts. I'm wondering, now that we've had some practice building heated bus shelters, what we can expect to see for a timeline for this transit shelter, and how confident are we that the cost here is a true reflection of what the cost is going to be. I remember the Eastlink Centre and the other heated bus shelter had an increase in cost halfway through construction. So I would like to know more about that.
I'll send that to you first, but feel free to send it to another chief if you think that's more appropriate.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll defer that to Chief Glavin, please.
Thank you, Chair Bressi. Regarding timelines, it's my understanding that if it were funded, that it could be completed before winter this year, and that the funding being asked for is what is required. I could ask the Director of Transit for more specific information, but to my knowledge, this is what would be required in order to have it completed prior to winter.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Glavin. That really does address my concern, because there's not a lot of point in building a heated bus shelter in time for spring. So I would really like to see it in operation by the fall.
Any other questions on the transit shelters? And last up, we've got the DesignWorks Solar Power Project. Any questions on this one? Not seen it, so I'll do a last call for if anybody missed a question they should have asked on any of these. Mayor Clayton?
Thanks. It might be for Ms. Cajolet or for the interim CFO, but or acting, sorry. Would the National Aboriginal and Hockey Championship and the Special Olympics, Alberta Summer Games, not qualify for large-scale tourism?
I recognize Ms. Casualty. She makes her way up.
Thank you through the chair. Certainly the Special Olympics event would likely meet the criteria for the large-scale tourism event or funding. For the 2023 year, the large-scale tourism funding has been fully allocated.
Sure, but this event is 2025, so this could be postponed till the large-scale tourism discussion in 2024?
Thank you through the chair. It certainly could at committee's discretion. The intent to have some funding for Special Olympics would be to work on some advertising and marketing as we're preparing for the games. Also doing the graphic design for the sponsorship packages, which if there isn't capacity in-house will need to be contracted out, as well as some branded clothing to wear to events as we're promoting opportunities. And the funding for the National Aboriginal Hockey Championships, which is taking place in 2024. There are some costs associated with startup of the society, website development, logo development for that event, as well as the sponsorship packages that would be hoped to be working on before the end of the 2023 year.
Thank you.
Councillor Bosch.
Thank you. Just a clarity question. With the Special Olympics, it says with additional requests forthcoming in 24 and 25. Is that what you were talking about, clothing and graphics, or is there a up and above financial request for the games outside of marketing?
Thank you. Through the chair, the anticipated $10,000 request as part of the mid-year funding would allow us to begin all of those processes, obtain some clothing for promoting at upcoming events and things. And then because the event is in 2025, we will have an opportunity to spread additional requests for funding over the 2024 and 2025 year.
Great. What's the funding request, though, for? Like, is it for marketing and branding, or is it for... I don't know what the request will be.
Fair. Perfect. Thank you through the chair. So there's a number of requirements that will be needed in order to actually host events. So it could be renting of equipment in order to meet all of the facility guidelines for the sport requirements. So anything that the facilities aren't able to provide is what this funding would be utilized for. There's also a significant, same as any other large-scale tourism event that we apply for, there's also a significant requirement for the host society to fundraise and seek sponsorship opportunities. But there is typically a municipal requirement for hosting these events, and that's what that funding would be for the Special Olympics bid in particular. It is a requirement of Special Olympics that we hire a games manager, as an example.
Okay, because $10,000 isn't a lot of money. I'm just looking at the future, what's coming.
Thank you. For the chair, the $10,000 is anticipated to get us started on the process for the 2023 year.
Thank you. Mayor Clayton.
Just on the Design Works solar project, it's not a mid-year capital request. There's no money. It's a location change. So I just want to clarify that it's here because it's an operational change and you're just looking for council's endorsement. Chief Clavin?
Thank you, Chair Bressy. Yes, essentially in the capital plan, it specifically outlines the Design Works Center. As we're changing the location, we wanted it to be explicit in the capital plan what we were doing.
And do you happen to recall, Chief Clavin, was there grant money on this, or?
Thank you, Chair Bressy. So initially, when we proposed this project in 2022, there was grant money that we had anticipated getting for this project that ultimately did not flow through. So the project that we were initially planning at Design Works was larger than what this would accommodate. We did do a tendering process for this earlier this year, and it came in 40% over budget. So we did not come back asking for that money. We didn't see enough of a return to make that make sense. So we looked at the city service center, and we can incorporate that in with the battery energy storage system for future electric buses as well. So it's a better opportunity given the current circumstances.
So, if I may, what's the timing of this project? If council wanted to pause on it, is it too late?
Thank you, Chair Bressy. As there is no procurement outstanding on this right now, we would not be obligated to spend the money at this time.
Okay, thank you.
I'll also recognize Chief McEachern informs me that she's got some updated information on grants.
Thank you, Chair Bressy. Yes, I've been able to confirm in regards to Mayor Clayton's question that our grant coordinator is working closely with Transit right now, and there's a number of grants that that we are in the process of applying for. One of them in particular is called the Rural Transit Solutions Fund, which has a maximum of $5 million to go to different initiatives.
We'd be happy to take $5 million and provide heated shelters across the city. Thank you.
Are there any other questions about anything on the mid-year capital requests? That case is...
Stop calling them capital requests. Because they're capital and operating.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Yeah, thank you. So is there anybody will do business on capital and operating budgets? Mayor Clayton?
Thanks, Chair Bressy. I would move that committee recommend council amend the 2023 operating capital budgets as presented in Appendix A. And clearly in Appendix A, so that the funding sources are as mentioned in Appendix A. Thank you.
Thank you. Any conversation or debate on that? Then I will call that to question.
Before you do that,
Sorry,
Councillor Bressy.
Councillor Blackmore, the computer's in an awkward space for me. My apologies.
So this is just a point of order, I think. This is going to council. And then at that point, we can ask the motion to be split into the various funding streams, correct?
Yeah, that's right. And if anybody wants to split it today because there's something you don't think should go to council, that absolutely, I'd be happy to split it today too. But at council, yeah, my understanding is you'd have the opportunity to split it there too.
Hey, I'm quite okay splitting it at council should the need arise. So I will let you know now I'm voting in favor of the motion.
Excellent. I'll call it to question with that in favor vote.
Up in favor.
That motion carries. And with that, we don't have any correspondence. We don't have any other business. I think that takes us to our outstanding items list. And Ms. Nespo.
Thank you, Chair Bressy. For the outstanding items list, I believe item 1280 was covered by the report presented in the agenda under item 3.1. And the other items noted, to my understanding, are on track for reporting during the indicated periods.
Thank you. Somebody willing to do the business? Councillor Blackmore.
I'd be happy to.
Thank you.
I move that we accept the outstanding items list as amended.
And I will call that to question.
Councillor Plot in favor.
And that motion carries. And with that, I will call this meeting adjourned.